All right, welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And Dr. Lopkin, I have to say, I was really, I'll say looking forward. I don't mean looking forward in an optimistic way, but definitely looking forward to the Mueller testimony and thinking, okay, I'm not going to listen to Sean Hannity. I'm not going to, this could be damaging. I did not watch as much as you did, but what I saw was just blowing up in their faces. Your comments, love to hear it.
Yeah, it's certainly not what the Democrats wanted out of this testimony. And we should point out that at the time we're recording this, testimony is still going on because he's testifying in front of two separate committees today. So the first one is already done. He's testifying in front of the second committee.
Okay, the conclusion on the first committee, what do you think?
It is definitely not what the Democrats wanted.
Okay, I got to interject something. I just got to interject. What's his name? The organizer. I think he gets politically punished for this, don't you think?
I think Jerry Nadler should be punished for this.
But does he get punished?
I don't know, because honestly, I don't know how many people who haven't already made up their minds are actually watching this. And Nadler is actually not front and center. I mean, he was right there at the beginning with the opening comments, but other than time's up, you can answer that question. He hasn't really.
Yeah, but he organized it. It's his party. It's
definitely his party. Yes.
I think it blew up in his face. I think he's a do-nothing congressman. This was his moment in the sun. I think he didn't believe half of the crap, but he was getting him and Schiff were getting, on TV 24/7. And I think if it's not dead now, then you know something? I don't know anything, Dr. Lake. Actually, if it is not dead now, I know nothing. How does that sound?
I'm actually going to disagree with you on one thing. I think Nadler did believe it. I think Nadler still believes that Trump is guilty.
Okay.
Despite all of the evidence to the contrary. The Mueller report clearly stated there was no collusion. So, of course, today they are hinging everything on obstruction of justice. And
for no crime, but anyway.
Right. But the things that have come out, now I have not read the entire Mueller report, so some of what came out today was actually a surprise to me. The big surprise for me was that, if you remember, there was a big deal made about a meeting at Trump Tower with a Russian operative.
Yeah, I remember that, yes.
Well, as it turns out...
I think Don Jr. or something was involved.
Yes. Well, as it turns out, this Russian operative also had meetings with Fusion GPS, which was the firm that Clinton paid for the dossier.
That blows that out of the water, doesn't it?
So they are actually looking at the possibility, and it was stated that Barr and the Justice Department are currently investigating the idea that that entire meeting was a setup.
So, okay, barring any last-minute fireworks, what is your? Let's do total. How impact on Trump, and then impact on the Democratic Party.
I don't think there's going to be any fireworks, because the one statement that stands out over everything else Mueller said, and Mueller was very clear that he would not comment on anything other than what was in the report. Mm-hmm. When the Democratic Congress people went point by point to get his agreement on whether or not there was obstruction, they said his actions met all of the qualifications for obstruction. Mueller very specifically and on multiple occasions stated that he did not agree with that conclusion.
Oh God, it's over then.
He did not agree with that analysis. So they could not get him to say there was obstruction.
So I think the big winner, Trump's having, by the way, in spite of his go back to where he came from, which was obviously a misstep, he's had a great month. His ratings are high. I think, again, you have to agree, this Mueller thing is finally done. Come on.
I think I think they're going to still try to drag it out, especially the squad. But for the most part, they have lost everything. And there has been analysis on TV from reporters. I actually saw Lester Holt. Now, we know Lester Holt is a big Democratic supporter. He actually was noticeably upset when he had to announce that Hillary had lost. And he and his analyst team have been talking about how the Democrats did not get anything they needed out of this.
I think it's a fair conclusion. Now, how about our freshman congresswomen? What's going on there?
Yeah, the squad is. I mean, they've been referred to as the squad in the media, and the fact of the matter is they're not that united. And I think they are going to start having problems because we had the vote on impeachment and the Democrats shot it down. Of course, the Republicans in the House voted against it, but it was overwhelming that everybody, except of course, the far left, voted against impeachment proceedings starting. So they, for all of their claims that they're the future and they're in control, they have no control. AOC backed candidates for local positions in her district, and she is having a hard time getting them elected. So even in her home district, she has no real power anymore.
My real opinion on the squad is it was a media phenomenon. It was the planets coming together. I think it's almost like I'm thinking of Joe McCarthy, believe it or not. Like he had that moment in the sun and it all imploded. That's what I really
there is actually a lot of similarities between them and Joe McCarthy. I mean, if you speak out against them, oh, you're a racist. It's like with Joe McCarthy, if you spoke out against him, oh, you're a communist. You have to be stopped. The fact of the matter is, these people have not put forward one policy that was worth serious consideration. And in fact, if you've been watching Bernie Sanders, it is absolutely hysterical because his campaign has actually been proving that his own policies and those that the squad is pushing won't work. He had his health plan. Vermont was going to implement it. This is actually going back a little ways. And Vermont killed it because it wasn't cost effective and was not going to help people. This week,
now that we're turning on the 2020 candidates, I have to say I want your assessment of the whole gang. I think they're all trying to find oxygen. It's really not happening. I believe Bernie, that's gone. I think he's really done. What do you think?
The wind is out of Bernie's sails, and I think he killed himself this week when he announced that he was going to be paying his campaign workers a $15 minimum wage. And to do that, he was cutting back all their hours. So none of them are actually making more money. Well, this is what we've already seen happen in cities that have passed the $15 minimum wage. He's showing that his own policies are failing.
Yeah, I think also he's another phenomenon, feel the burn. It was really chic. I'm telling you, from a marketing perspective, you had people that really never thought that he would be elected, but it was so cool. You're from the suburbs, you're making more than triple figures to have feel the burn on your bumper sticker. It was a cool thing to show you're enlightened and you're happening. And I think it was a phenomenon.
And I think it was even more than that, though, because I think the whole feel the burn movement, especially at the beginning, was really pushed by an anybody but Hillary movement.
True. Yes.
If there had been a legitimate candidate in the Democratic primary, I don't think Hillary or Bernie would have done well.
I think Bernie would have done better. Hillary was another Joe Biden. Different reasons, but it's all Hillary. Remember, she was preordained. Same thing with Biden. I think Biden's finished too. What do you think?
I think Biden's.
Anyway.
I think Biden is finished. I don't think Biden was ever preordained. I think Biden was a Hail Mary pass by the Democratic establishment to try to stop this left-wing swing.
But no, I don't agree 100%. I agree 100% with that. I didn't mean preordained was the wrong choice of words. He was like the great white hope, so to speak.
Yes.
That these left-wing nutcases have no chance of winning, and then you got Biden, and he's down the center. At least he had a history of it, and then he imploded. If he has one more bad debate, the party's over. Do you agree or not?
Yeah, I don't think he can survive another bad performance.
And he will get one too.
And it really is a shame because the Democratic committees know that if one of these wackos actually gets the nomination, that's it. The party's over. Trump has another 4 years. Done.
You really think Elizabeth Warren can't take him out? Because that's what I really feel.
I have a feeling she will be the candidate. No, I don't think she can take him out. She will carry the Northeast. She will carry California. But she is not going to carry the middle of the country. She won't even
carry Minnesota. I think Omar
wouldn't surprise me. And that's another thing, that because the Democrats are fighting among themselves and the fighting predates, this election, I don't think they're going to come together to back any single candidate. So I don't think they're going to be able to unify the party enough to pose a serious threat to Trump in the 2020 election.
No, and I also think that Trump did have a misstep about go back to where you came from.
Yes.
But I think him holding up our freshman congresswoman as the face of the Democrat was a masterful move. I really do believe it.
That was a good move. He should have done it in another way. That was a stupid phrasing.
Yeah, no,
but the fact of the matter is, as I said earlier, none of these four have done anything. They haven't put together a single policy that was realistic. They have not galvanized the party. They are a disaster. And I honestly don't think of the four of them, there's a brain among them.
Oh, no. And that's why when you hold them up as the face of the Democratic Party, I think it does have traction in places like Omar's backyard, Minnesota. It's just it's so left-wing. AOC is so crazy, the whole lot of them, that even a left-of-center person is like, this is crazy.
Yeah, that's just it. And AOC is starting to see that because even New York City Democrats are not falling behind her. They are trying to keep her candidates out of office. They are trying to run a primary against her. And a Republican has come forth to run against her in the next election, and it is an African-American woman who's running against her. So
we'll see how that goes.
She cannot play the race card. She cannot play the gender card. So she is going to have to actually fight on issues.
But doesn't it speak volumes for the Democratic Party? Essentially, a 28-year-old. Okay, when you first get out of school, you can be a bartender. There's nothing wrong with a bartender, but you can be a bartender, paying the bills while you're looking for. Basically, she was a full-time bartender. I mean, never did anything.
No, she's never done anything. A lot of AOC's background has been blown out of proportion by the media. She did not grow up poor. She grew up in Westchester. Her father was a business person who owned his own business. What she complains about is that after he passed away, he had not properly prepared them. So they had financial difficulties after her father passed away, Why? Because her mother did nothing the entire time her father was alive. So she did not have skills to get a good paying job. So she went and she took up custodial work and she was cleaning. There's nothing wrong with that as a job. But AOC had gotten used to growing up in Westchester. And how dare anybody expect her to have to struggle to make a living?
I don't understand the whole BU thing. I mean, that does not reflect well on that school. I'm just sorry. A complete and a degree in economics? Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand how she got a degree in economics, because all of the policies she's put forward shows you that she does not understand economics at all.
I agree. Last question. Do you think that she's starting to realize that the party's getting over? It's not over yet, but I think she does.
I don't think she does. I think she still thinks she's in control because her world is social media. She doesn't pay attention to the mainstream media. Her whole thing is, does she get a good coverage on Twitter? Do her followers retweet her? She's got that whole little, bubble that she lives in. And I don't think she realizes what's going on.
Speaking of the bubble, because we do agree, I believe, that the mainstream, if there is such a thing anymore, media is in the hip pocket of the Democrats, and I think they're not going to put her on. They did at the beginning because they know she's dangerous to the brand.
I think it's going to depend. I don't think the news shows are putting her on anymore. They've certainly seemed to stopped paying attention to her. She's still big with the late night comedians, so she's still going to get airtime there.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, her peers actually get more information from late night comedians and social media than they do actual news. But
yeah,
I don't think she's getting real coverage anymore.
Okay, our final little bit here. Okay, speaking of the mainstream media, I watched CNN last night. Cuomo was on, and there's not. We've talked about it. I know it's not a great revelation, but there is not even the illusion of bipartisanship. It's really, it's comical. I mean, he was picking apart the tax. I mean, and he basically had Freudian slips like, we need to know this. We need to do this at the ballot. I'm like, buddy, hello. I think you have some Freudian. I mean, you're finally. I mean, CNN's completely off the rail.
The problem with the mainstream media is that reporters seem to have not been taught that they are not supposed to be part of the story. Their bias, their opinions are not supposed to be part of what they're reporting. And they have thrown that by the wayside. And there is a backlash because CBS just named Norah O'Donnell as host of CBS Evening News. Now, she was one of those reporters that was, meeting with Hillary Clinton prior to the last election. Everybody knows she is not an unbiased reporter.
Not at all. Yeah.
And her ratings, the ratings for CBS Evening News tanked as soon as she took over. So people are saying enough is enough.
Who's a genius that thought, I know her as she's like basically part of the Democratic Party. Anyone, let me ask you, as a business consultant, forget about if you like something or not. It's just common sense for the Benjamins, as Omar would say, that the time's right, bipartisanship or a neutral news person would be just a ticket for ratings. And then they put a left-wing ideologue in. I mean, it's like, hello, she's been at it for years. And by a spoiled brat, by the way, as well. But anyway, that's another thing.
If any of these networks actually put forward unbiased news, their ratings would go up. There is no doubt about it. And that goes the same for the right-wing news as it does for the left-wing news. If they actually could prove they were accurate and they were bipartisan, or more specifically nonpartisan, they would get ratings.
I would agree. Well, that concludes another edition of Carnivore Bites. We'll do it again next week.
See you next week.
You've been listening to Carnivore Bites, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can catch us every week at exvadio.com/podcasts, on the iHeartRadio app, the Apple Podcasts app, the iTunes Store, Spotify, and wherever you find podcasts. You can also catch us live every Friday at 4 on WESU FM 88.1.
Oh.